Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the new Yamato Wielder Part 2. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 3, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, FatedGil from WhatIf. So let's start the video. Third person POV. The next round was 𝗧𝗧𝗃𝗍 against 𝗵𝗃. Izumi wanted to hold him longer, but she sadly accepted that he had to go win his round. And when he did, 𝗧𝗧𝗃 easily used 𝗵𝗃's speed against him. 𝗵𝗃 ran straight at 𝗧𝗧𝗃, who dodged and pushed him straight out of the ring. He had won in 5 seconds. He walked back to the new DMC and sat down with Izumi, resuming their previous position. Before Hanako left to get ready, Izuku had to inform the group of something. Izuku, everyone, after this sports festival is over, meet me at my room. There is something that Nizu and I have to inform you in private. 𝗧𝗧𝗃, anything you can tell us about now? Izuku, it's an off-the-books mission. Hidden under the excitement of the sports festival. 𝗧𝗧𝗃, sounds fun. Izuku, Hanako, right? Well, better head to the arena now, see ya peeps. Izuku watched as Hanako left to fight in her match. He sighed, wondering if she would draw out the match, or end it quickly. Hanako was walking out to the battlefield looking at her opponent. Hanako, so her 𝗳𝗧𝗧𝗔𝗂𝗧𝗔𝗂𝗧 which means that 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗔𝗂𝗧𝗔𝗂𝗧𝗔 the fight quickly. Mina, what in the hell? Hanako, whoops, sorry, habit from my boyfriend. Midnight, are you two ready? Mina, yes. Hanako, midnight, and go. I jumped immediately at the crack of the WHP and activated my devil trigger. Gil, her devil trigger is similar to Lucia's because I like Lucia's DT form. Except Hanako's hands and feet are normal. Everyone in the stands was shocked at the sight of Hanako's DT form. She heard some gasps and some people were asking if she was a devil. She laughed at this, wondering what their reaction to Izuku's SDT form would be. Hanako POV. I was flying around, avoiding Mina's acid that she was throwing at me. I waited for an opening before doing anything. Patience is a virtue, as an opening was given by the enemy herself. Mina had slipped on her own acid. She managed to get up and throw a punch at me as I landed. I dodged the punch while grabbing her wrist. I threw her over my shoulder. She bounced once inside the ring, then 2 more times outside the ring. Midnight, Hanako 𝗧𝗪𝗏 wins. As I entered the lobby area, I watched as 𝗧𝗧𝗃 sheepishly passed Izuku 5,000 yen, $35.70 US. Hanako, saw you two bet on my match? Izuku, of course. I was certain you would play it safe and win, whereas 𝗧𝗧𝗃 thought you would rush in without waiting but still win. So I won the bet. Hanako, of course. I said this with a smile as I cuddled up against Izuku. I looked up at the TV and saw that Momo and 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 were up next. I was shocked. Momo wasn't able to do anything about 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃's dark shadow. Izuku, that goes to show. The recommendation doesn't mean that they are truly better. I smacked his 𝗧𝗃𝗃. Hanako, oi, she tried her best at least. Izuku, you're right. Dark shadow is just too strong for her current state. Ijiro is up now. Izuku, yes. This will be an interesting match. 2 people with very similar quirks. I looked over at the TV and saw Ijiro walking up to the stage now. Izuku, an arm wrestle to decide the winner. That's a good way of settling it. Katsumi, yeah, seems fun. Izuku, come to think of it, aren't you up next, Katsumi? Katsumi, you don't have to remind me. I laughed at this. Hanako, gotten comfortable have you? Katsumi, yes I have. I could hear Izumi and Izuku holding back their laughter. I could also see Shoka giggling uncontrollably in Katsumi's arms. Izuku, well, cousin-in-law, you better head off. Katsumi, yeah, wait, what did you call me? Now Izuku was laughing at a red-faced Katsumi. We all were. Shoka grabbed her hand and dragged her to the door leading to the arena waiting room. Shoto finally returned from having a chat with his mom and dad. Shoto, what did I miss? Izuku, Katsumi and Shoka got together. 𝗧𝗧𝗃𝗃 and Izumi also got together. Shoto, Good for them. Izuku, it's your turn next. Shoto, huh? How do you know? Izuku, know what? Shoto. Izuku, does little cousin Shoto have a crush already? Shoto, maybe. Izuku, don't worry about it for now. Let's just watch your sister's girlfriend's match. Shoto, let's. With that, we all waited in anticipation to see what Katsumi would pull off. Katsumi POV. I dodged away from Achiko's hands. I didn't want to get thrown out of the area easily. I set off an explosion in front of me, trying to knock her away. When the smoke cleared, she wasn't there. I sensed a presence behind me and turned. Achiko was behind me. She managed to get me with her quirk. I started to float away, but I righted myself with my quirk. I flew at her with my explosions. I managed to get behind her and put her in a chokehold. Katsumi, sorry, but you need to be a little bit quicker than that. Midnight, Uraraka, can you move? Achiko tried to escape the hold, but she couldn't. She went limp in defeat. Achiko, no I can't Midnight. Midnight, Katsumi Bakugo wins. When I returned to the lobby, I was suddenly wrapped in a hug from Shoka. Shoka, you did excellent out there cat. Katsumi, thanks Sho. A couple of us jumped at the sound of a phone. Izuku pulled out his phone with a confused look, which slowly turned to one of worry as he read who the caller was. He picked up the call and walked to a different room. Shoto, something seriously bad is going on. I haven't seen that facial expression in a while. Shoka, yet. We heard him shouting in the other room. I could only make out a he what. Izuku eventually returned with an angry look. Izuku, before anyone asks, I'll tell you at the meeting later. He then walked over to Hanako and rested his head on her lap and went to sleep immediately. Hanako, that bad. Izuku POV. Izuku, hello uncle, what seems to be the problem? Nizu, phone, Katsuki has disappeared. Izuku, he what? Nizu, phone, the quirk-canceling ℏ𝗏𝗏𝐶FFs were decayed. Izuku, the love. Nizu, phone, exactly. Inform your squad about this info later. Izuku, no problem, uncle. See you later tonight. Nizu, phone, yep, the Yakuza fall tonight. Izuku, oh, is Eri with you? Nizu, yep, she's enjoying the festival. Izuku, that's good. Nizu, well, I'm off now, got some paperwork to do. Izuku, bye uncle. I walked back to the room where everyone was. They all looked at me, waiting for me to say something. Izuku, before anyone asks, I'll tell you at the meeting later. I then lay down on Hanako's lap and let the darkness of sleep take me. Third-person POV. Hanako just sat there, running her hands through Izuku's hair while everyone sat down, waiting for the next match. Present mic, can I get a YIS? Crowd, YIH? Present mic, round 2 is starting now. The bracket will be put on screen now. Round 2. Battle 1. Izuku Sparta vs Shoto Todoroki. Battle 2. Izumi Yagi vs Ryoshi Sparta. Battle 3. Hanako Sparta vs 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃. Battle 4. Ijiro Kirishima vs Katsumi Bakugo. Present mic, W. Look at that. We have Izuku Sparta vs Shoto Todoroki first. Got anything to say, Eraser? Izawa, tired, looks like a lot of damage. Present mic. You heard it here first folks. Will Izuku Sparta and Shoto Todoroki make their way to the arena? Izuku woke up to the loud shouting of present mic, along with a nudge from Hanako. He got up without a word and walked to the arena. The gel in his hair had finally come out for today, due to all of the action, so it covered his eyes. There was a small sense of fear from everyone as they didn't want to upset an already mad Izuku. Shoto didn't see Izuku wake up as he was already heading out to the arena. Before he knew it, Izuku was in the area, ready to fight. Midnight, are you ready? Both members nodded. Midnight, and go. Shoto POV. At the crack of the WHP, I immediately sent my ice in a big wave, trying to end this quickly, like in the first round. Izuku, however, drew his sword and sliced the ice before it got to him. I sighed and activated my fire side. Shoto, not going to go down that easily, huh? He didn't respond. His hair was no longer slicked back like usual. I couldn't see his eyes. He suddenly ran at me. I held my left hand up and sent a wave of fire at him. Instead of dodging like a normal person, he ran straight through the fire. His shirt had started to burn. He didn't seem to care. He undid the buttons. I sighed, knowing what I would see. There was a loud gasp from the crowd as Izuku's shirt flew out of the arena, carried off by the wind, slowly burning to ashes. There was no sound from the crowd or the announcers. They were too shocked by the amount of scars that Izuku had. He was covered in explosion scars. There was even a hand-shaped scar on his sternum. But I already knew all of this. I summoned ice to block a sudden sword slash from him. The sword disappeared and was replaced by his gauntlets. I heard a weird noise and looked up. I shot ice above me as a bunch of green energy knives fell from the sky. This distraction allowed Izuku to break the ice that I had used to block. Izuku's hair had moved from in front of his eyes for a second, and what I saw shocked me. His eyes were blue. Izuku's eyes are normally green. His hair suddenly turned white. Izuku smiled, sheathed his sword, dashed forward faster than I could follow, and jabbed the sheathed sword into my gut, launching me out of the ring. Gil, how Izuku looked in that moment. Minus the tears. There was still no sound from the crowd. I looked over at Izuku as midnight announced him as the winner. His eyes faded from blue back to green and his hair went from white to green as well. His sword disappeared as he walked over to me and offered me his hand. I took it and he helped me stand. He put my arm around his shoulder and helped me walk back. Shoto, that one really hurt, Izuku. Izuku, what? Oh, that. Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't in control. Shoto, oh? What happened? I pulled a notebook out of my non-existent pockets, titled, Theories. Izuku, I'll tell you later. Also, it's good to see that you have picked up my old ability. Shoto, thanks. It's pretty useful as it allows me to keep more information. We got to the lobby area. Izuku placed me on a couch next to 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘. I looked up at Izuku, pleading him to not do this with my eyes. He just cheekily grinned at me and sat down next to Hanako. He had figured it out. I have a crush on Momo. Third-person POV. Izuku decided that this would be a good idea to show off one of his new abilities. Izuku opened a small circular portal and reached in. Izuku, anyone want a drink? Most people declined. Izumi asked for a Powerade, Ryoshi asked for a red Monster energy drink, and Izuku grabbed a white Monster for himself. Izuku watched Momo and Shoto awkwardly talk to each other. They both had a crush on each other, and both didn't realize that the other had a crush on them. Izuku looked up as Ryoshi and Izumi stood up for their match. Izuku, good luck you too. Izumi, thanks big brother. Ryoshi, thanks Izuku. Izuku watched the TV as the two were introduced by Present Mike. I remembered something, so I stood up and opened the small portal again. I pulled out a UA gym shirt, put it on, and sat back down with Hanako. Izuku could have sworn that he heard a sad sigh. Izuku decided to question it. Izuku, would you prefer me to not have a shirt on? Hanako, Eddie? I laughed. That's all the reaction I needed. Izuku, oh my god, you should have seen your face. Hanako, quietly you're mean. I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her head into my 𝗧𝗍𝗧. She proceeded to gently punch it. She looked up with a red face. I smiled and ran my hands through her white hair, admiring the green ends. Ryoshi POV. I was pulled forwards immediately after the WHP crack. I dropped into my defensive stance just before I got hit. Ryoshi, Royal Guard. I absorbed the blow and backflipped away. Izumi immediately followed. This was a mistake. I shot at her with ebony and ivory, once from each gun. She grabbed the bullets with her telekinesis, but that required all of her focus. While she was distracted by the bullets, I rushed at her and picked her up. I threw her to the other side of the arena. I followed after immediately. I pulled out Balrog and punched her while she was still in the air. This finally pushed her out of the arena, giving me the win. Ryoshi, sorry about that, I just kind of wanted to face Izuku in the next round. Izumi, I don't mind, I didn't expect to win that round anyway. We walked back together. We entered the lobby area and saw Shoto and Momo still chatting along happily. It was a surprise, seeing Shoto with a smile on his face. As we sat down, Hanako stood up and walked off to her match. Izuku just sat there, seeming as if he was pondering something. Hanako POV. Let's get this over quickly. Midnight, are you both ready? I nodded, so did 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. Midnight, and go. I sidestepped left as dark shadow flew at me. I grabbed the shadowy figure and pulled him towards me. This in turn pulled 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 towards me. I grabbed him by the shirt and flipped him into the ground. The ground cracked under him. I may have gone a bit strong. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 coughed up BLD. He didn't move from where he was laying. Midnight called him out, and Recovery Girl rushed over. He was fine in the end, but I was scared that I had hurt him badly. When I got back to the lobby, I immediately fell into Izuku's embrace. He just held me and said nothing. I just lay in his embrace until I stopped shaking. When I finally calmed myself down, Katsumi was already gone. I looked over at the TV and watched as Midnight cracked her WHP, signaling the match to begin. As I watched, it seemed that it was a bad matchup for Ijiro. Katsumi managed to stay on the offensive the whole time. All Ijiro could do was block or dodge as Katsumi kept him at a distance, using her superior range against him. He eventually got blasted out of the arena when his hardening ran out. Katsumi held a hand out to him and helped him up. That was all of the round 2 battles done. I was up against Katsumi next. I was excited. Izuku POV. I looked up, seeing what the next matches were to be. Round 3. Battle 1. Izuku 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 vs Ryoshi 𝗧𝗧𝗏. Battle 2. Hanako 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃 vs Katsumi Bakugo. This will be interesting. I will either fight my girlfriend, or get a rematch against Katsumi, who has gotten better with her quirk. I was so confident about beating Ryoshi that I was already planning out a strategy for the final round. Present mic, wait. Can Ryoshi 𝗧𝗏𝗏 and Izuku 𝗧𝗏𝗏 enter the arena? I got up and walked out. I glared at my father, while the crowd cheered. I watched him shiver. I then broke eye contact and stared at Ryoshi. I watched his body glow with a red aura, as I allowed mine to glow with a green aura. Immediately, I allowed the green aura to flow out over my body. I summoned Yamato to my hand as Ryoshi summoned Devil Sword Dante to his while his red aura expanded. The crowd went silent. These forms of ours looked more hellish or devilish than Hanako's. Hanako practically looked like a fallen angel. Compared to we flew at each other, our swords clashing at the middle point. I couldn't hold this form for long. Neither could he. We started flying within the area, clashing swords mid-air. I eventually got a lucky hit in and managed to slam Ryoshi into the ground. I launched a mirage blade at him and teleported to it. I felt my form fading, so I used a last-ditch move using my SDT to increase the power of it. Izuku, Judgment Cut, End. Ryoshi, I started breathing heavily as my SDT form faded. I switched to Mirage Edge as I heard a footstep behind me. I slashed, and watched as Ryoshi dodged the strike. Suddenly Ryoshi went on the offensive, punching and kicking with Balrog. I could barely block. Let me take over. No, not after what happened to Shoto. He's fine. Now shut it. It's my turn. I could feel myself being pulled to the back of my mind. Then nothing. Allow me, Shin, to show you true power. Shin POV. I ducked under a wide hook and jumped over a low kick, before jabbing my attacker in the stomach. He staggered backwards as I saw him clutch his stomach. He looked up and was surprised by the sudden appearance change. Ryoshi, Izuku? What happened to your hair and eyes? Shin, I got an anime power-up, you could call it. Ryoshi, Shin, now on with it. I equipped Beowulf and started the attack. Throwing high and low punches, combined with spinning kicks. I heard the cracking of bone and an uncomfortable grunt. He'll heal it up later. Eventually, Ryoshi fell under my onslaught. I stared at the knocked-out Ryoshi. My eyes returned to green. His hair returned to green. He allowed Beowulf to fade. He stared at the knocked-out Ryoshi before returning to the lobby area. Izuku POV. I entered the lobby area and saw the shocked looks of my friends. Suddenly, I was hit with a massive headache and keeled over. Izuku, what happened? Izumi, I don't know, you were losing to Ryoshi, then you got what you called an anime power-up and beat the CRP out of him. Izuku, okay, no need to shout. Izumi, you broke his arms? Izuku, he can heal like me. He's fine. With that, I finally fell down. I could faintly hear Hanako panicking, but it sounded so far away. Hanako, far Izuku? Izuku, stay awake. Someone get recovery girl. With that, the world went dark for the third time today. Ryoshi POV. I stood up and saw recovery girl running over. I just allowed my arms to heal and all of my injuries disappeared along with the repairing of my arms. I was talking to recovery girl, convincing her I was fine. Hanako suddenly rushed out and called for recovery girl. I followed them to see Izuku laying unconscious on the floor of the lobby. I picked him up and placed him on the bed in the room. I remembered what happened last time, so I chained him down. No one argued with my decision. Just before Hanako's match was set to start, he woke up. I watched as he started to thrash around, trying to escape the restraints. Hanako walked over and freed him. He sat up and stretched his arms. His joints popped as he stretched. He walked over to me and apologized. I told him that it was fine, seeing as I wasn't permanently injured. Hanako had left to go fight her match against Katsumi. Izuku sat down next to me on the left. Izumi was sat on the right of me. As the camera panned over the crowd, Izuku suddenly jumped up, staring at the screen with a mixture of shock and rage on his face. He ran off to the stands. I didn't stop him. He would be fine. Hanako POV. I ran forward straight to Katsumi, but before I got to her, she transformed with a massive explosion. I managed to not get pushed out of the ring by burying my feet under the ground. I looked up and grinned at her current form. Gil, minus the creature behind her. I activated my DT form. I ran behind her. I heard the crowd gasp as I practically teleported behind her. However, Katsumi just set off an explosion from her back. I realized that I had the same problem as Ijiro. I'm a close-range fighter, she has range on her side. Suddenly, she ran forwards and grabbed me by the throat. She flipped me over her shoulder. She then chased me, using explosions to keep up. Before I knew it, she punched me in the gut, then flew backwards. I wondered why she didn't press on with the attack. I stopped myself with my wings. Midnight, Hanako is out of bounds. Katsumi wins. I looked down and saw that I was indeed out of bounds. I flew down to the ground and deactivated my DT form. Katsumi also reverted back to normal. We both started to walk back to the lobby. Hanako, I underestimated your speed. That was over very quick. Katsumi, yeah, sorry about that. Hanako, oh, no, I'm not sad about it. You get a rematch against Izuku, good luck. Katsumi, thanks. Hanako, have you decided on a name for your new quirk? Katsumi, yes I have, it's called Explosion Devil. There is more power to my new quirk, but it seems not locked. Hanako, we may need to get Izuku to look at it, maybe he can figure out why the rest of the power is locked. As we arrived in the lobby area, Izuku wasn't there. Ryoshi said that he had run off after seeing someone in the TV. I wonder who he saw and why he needed to run off. I had just sat down on the couch when Izuku reappeared around the doorway. Izuku POV. I was running around the arena, looking for him. There I see him. Just up ahead was a man whose head looked like a potato. He had an oxygen mask over his face. He looked familiar. The man turned around. Izuku, hello. My name is Izuku 𝗧𝗵𝗲, nice to meet you. Hello Izuku, my name's 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Izuku, I feel like I have met you somewhere before. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, you have, Izuku. The man pointed a finger gun at me. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, now sit down. I sat down. I felt like he would easily be able to kill me. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, good. Remember your expedition to 𝗵𝗃 Ward? Izuku, yeah, wait, how do you know about that? He didn't answer my question, he just kept talking. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, remember the guy with the black mask? Izuku, yeah? Hello again, quirk merchant. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, if now, you best be on your way, after all, you need to console your girlfriend after her loss. My BLD ran cold. He knew about my girlfriend. If he knows about my girlfriend, that means he could use her against me. Izuku, that's right. See you soon, 𝗲𝗚𝗧𝗏. 𝗲𝗚𝗧𝗏, yes you will. Sooner than you expect. He placed his hand on my shoulder as I stood up. I flicked the hand away. Something felt odd about the contact. I noticed that a red and blue aura disappeared from the hand as it moved away from me. 𝗲𝗚𝗧𝗏 says hi. Black goop came out of the man's mouth and he warped away. Of course he has a warp quirk. And who was 𝗵𝗃? The name sounds familiar. I brushed off the thought as I walked back to the lobby. As I walked around the door, I noticed Hanako looking at me with a confused expression on her face. Izuku, I just saw someone I knew. I went to say hi as I hadn't seen them in ages. Present mic, Izuku 𝗧𝗏 and 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Bakugo, please make your way to the arena for the final round. Izuku, well, that's my ticket. See you soon, Hanako. As I stood facing 𝗧𝗵𝗲 in the arena, I sensed a presence moving. I looked up as Toshinori moved out of his seat, heading to the teacher's lounge. He must be the person who is giving out the medals. Great. I was snapped out of my thoughts when I heard the sound of a WHP crack. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 transformed onto her explosion devil form. Yes, I heard 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and Hanako talking. No, I wasn't stalking them. I just have really good hearing. I deflected an explosion away from me with my sheathed sword. Shut off it. Couple of judgment cuts at her, but she avoided them. I was forced to block or dodge explosions that 𝗧𝗵𝗲 kept setting off. If I could just hit her with a mirage blade, then the game would be mine. Left hand, direct hit. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 looked at the mirage blade, then back at where I was standing before, but I wasn't there. Izuku, boo. She jumped away from me. I teleported behind her again and smacked her with the sheathed sword, before swapping to Beowulf. I hit 𝗧𝗵𝗲 with an uppercut, before connecting a second, flying uppercut. This launched her further up. I used this extra height to teleport to her again and hit her with Yamato like a baseball bat. I watched as she barely managed to stop herself in the air. The best way to finish this fight was to SW, so I stabbed myself with Yamato. Izuku, concentration level 3, 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. With us being this high in the air, it was difficult for 𝗧𝗵𝗲 to dodge the onslaught of attacks. She was pinned to the ground by the canes that V threw. Midnight, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, can you move? 𝗧𝗵𝗲 struggled against the canes, but to no avail. Izuku, those are devil arms, they cannot be broken easily. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 sighed. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, I am unable to move, Midnight. Present mic, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is unable to move. Izuku wins the UA Sports Festival. I made the canes vanish and walked back to the lobby with 𝗧𝗵𝗲. We sat there for a bit, before being directed to an underground area with 3 circles. I stood on the middle one. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 stood on the one to my right. Hanako and Ryoshi stood on the one on the left. Suddenly, the circular platforms started to rise out of the ground. The platforms emerged from an area within the stadium. We were met with a cheering crowd. All Might, I am here. To hand out medals. Great, I was right. I watched as Toshinori handed out bronze medals to Hanako and Ryoshi. A silver to 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Then he walked up to me. He placed a gold medal around my neck. I leaned forward and bowed to Toshinori. When I leaned back up, my hair was covering my eyes again. I hadn't been able to reapply gel to it. I was glad that it was covering the pure hatred emanating from my eyes. I brushed it away from my eyes as the camera crews came over to take photos. Toshinori was gone and I smiled at the cameras. Once the podiums retracted back underground, I cracked my knuckles. Phase 2 of the night starts now. Izuku POV. After the sports festival, I practically dragged everyone to Hanako and my room. Izuku, alright, many important revelations happened today. First, the phone call. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, can I go check on my brother first? Izuku, yeah. About that. The Love has him. Everyone, what? Izuku, and I believe he went willingly. But that's a chat for after tonight. Ryoshi, what do you mean? Izuku, tonight will be our first group act as the new DMC. An off-the-books mission to wipe out the 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏. Ryoshi, hey, sounds great. Shoka, revenge for Eri. Izuku, one thing, overhauls mine. Shoto, important question, who else is going other than us? Izuku, Aizawa, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and 𝗧𝗑𝗧. Hanako, 𝗧𝗑𝗧 can fight? Izuku, you have no idea. Also, live ammunition will be used. Izumi, by snipe right? Izuku, yeah, snipe, 𝗧𝗍 and me. I pull up a floorboard and grab out the gun that 𝗧𝗍 got me. Izuku, I am fully allowed to use this gun. That is what I had been practicing with up until the sports festival. Everyone, how did you get a gun? Izuku, Uncle 𝗧𝗍. Ryoshi, oh that makes sense. Izumi, Izuku, now, everyone get ready and meet me back here. After about 3 minutes, everyone came back wearing all black gear. I was wearing a new outfit that I had gotten a girl from the support department to make for me. Her name was Mei Hatsumi, and she almost blew me up on the many occasions that I had visited her on. Gil, art not mine, based on the not so loved DMC, Devil May Cry outfit. I just like the outfit, okay? And it kind of suits the aesthetic that I'm going for with this character. And this will be Izuku's new hero outfit for the rest of the FIC. Probably. As people complimented my suit, I opened a portal to 𝗧𝗍's office. 𝗧𝗍 looked up from his paperwork and looked at the group. He nodded and pulled out his M82. People were shocked by the size of gun that 𝗧𝗍 was using. I turned at the sound of a door opening. I nodded at Aizawa and 𝗧𝗵𝗲 as they entered. Once everyone was ready, I opened 3 portals. One to the building that 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was going to, a different building that 𝗧𝗍 was going to, and one to the front gate of the Shai Hasaikai HQ. Aizawa and the new DMC went to the front gate with me. Everyone had comms in their ears. Izuku, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, 𝗧𝗍, you in position? 𝗧𝗵𝗲, affirmative. 𝗧𝗍, confirm. 2 people behind the door. 1 bulky male and 1 slim female. Izuku, roger. Don't go loud until I kill them. 𝗧𝗍 and 𝗧𝗵𝗲, affirmative. I walked up to the door. I equipped Beowulf and punched the door off the hinges. There were a few weird looks thrown our way by the people walking by. Third-person POV. Aizawa watched as 2 heads flew over the wall, one after the other. He took this as the signal to go. He beckoned to the students. Everyone ran through the door. Most people other than Aizawa, Ryoshi and Hanako were a bit off-put by the headless corpses. Izuku, comms, cleared hot. Bang. Boop. Everyone flinched as 𝗧𝗵𝗲 then 𝗧𝗍 fired their weapons. Aizawa, Ryoshi, take Izumi, Shoto and Hanako with you and head right. I'll take Shoka and Katsumi with me to the left here. Ryoshi, roger that. Following Aizawa's squad, A squad, Aizawa POV. I started throwing my opponents with my capture weapon while Shoka froze the enemies and Katsumi exploded them, non-fatally. We were tasked with subduing the 8 bullets and anyone who got in our way. We were permitted to kill, but told to try and take the 8 bullets alive. Once the room was cleared, I felt an odd sensation as if I was drunk. I lost all sense of equilibrium and stumbled. I looked at my students and saw they were also stumbling and falling over. So, this was someone's quirk. I looked around and saw a man with a white mask drinking some form of alcohol, spilling most of it on the floor. Aizawa, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗃. I'm going to erase his quirk. When I do, Shoka, you will freeze him, got it? Shoka, understood, erase her head. I looked at 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗟 directly, and felt the tingling in my eyes that comes when I activate my quirk. Suddenly, everything returned to normal. I could stand properly. Shoka sent a wave of ice at the opponent, but he managed to dodge. I threw my capture tape at him to immobilize him. Shoka managed to freeze him this time. I felt the heaviness of my eyelids as my eyes started to close. Aizawa, Shoka, don't unfreeze him yet. Shoka, why? I blinked and she fell over onto Katsumi. I fell towards 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗟, who headbutted me. He couldn't escape from the ice, however. So I activated my quirk again and punched him in the face, knocking him out. Aizawa, okay, now you can unfreeze him. I pulled out some zip ties and rope and tied up the man. I looked over as 6 explosions came from the right side of the HQ. We would go assist Ryoshi's team soon, but we first needed to clear the rest of the left side. SWH to Ryoshi's squad, Devil Squad, Ryoshi POV. This man was annoying. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 came, one of the 8 bullets. He grabbed onto Shoto and disengaged his energy, which made 𝗵𝗃𝗃 bigger and stronger. I had managed to subdue him with a direct hit with one of my other guns, the 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁. I shot him with it 6 times. That seemed to do the trick. Oh, how wrong I was. Once we had him chained up, I saw something in his hand. Before I could get to him, he injected himself with it. Suddenly, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 started to 𝗧𝗑𝗧𝗃 the energy from all of us. I was told that his quirk requires contact. Ryoshi, what the hell is this? I watched as 𝗵𝗃𝗲 broke out of his restraints. He had grown massive. Not taller than Goliath, but still, large enough. I looked at my team. They were all semi-conscious on the ground. Ryoshi, nice, looks like I get to have fun with you, you lumbering pile of meat. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 threw a punch at me. I blocked it, but I was still launched back a bit. Ryoshi, ha. Now you pose a challenge. Sin Devil Trigger. I transform and rush the massive man. I don't want to kill the man, but it seems like I might have to. I will try to knock him out. If that doesn't work, stabby. I pulled out Cavalier and hit him with the motorbike parts, 𝗬𝗧𝗔𝗍𝗏, and start punching and kicking him. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 managed to block some of the hits, but I was too fast for him. So most of my attacks got through. I saw that most of my attacks weren't doing much. I sighed and switched over to Devil Sword Dante. I stabbed the sword into his 𝗧𝗓, then pulled back. I held up my hand and started forming energy around him. He couldn't move as I compressed energy on him. He tried to absorb it, but he couldn't. The energy got super condensed, then exploded outwards, almost killing 𝗵𝗃𝗲. I let my SDT form fade. I watched my friends slowly get up. I collapsed to my knees, tired from using that move. Everyone was too tired to move. We were slowly regaining energy when more Yakuza members emerged. There were 5 of them. We couldn't do anything. They were going to kill us. Bang, 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 boop. 4 fell down with medium-sized holes in their heads while the 5th man's head exploded. Izumi. Yep, that's Nizu for you. She fell to the ground unconscious. I sat there regaining my energy with the rest of my team. Izuku POV. I was walking through the halls. I had only killed the 2 at the doors so far. Most of the Yakuza seemed to be at the left and right sides. Hey, let me play with them. Come on, you're no fun, Izuku. Also, someone else is here. What? That momentary lapse in concentration allowed Shin to take over. Damn it. Don't kill too many people, try to take the 8 bullets alive. I make no promises. Shin POV, warning, lots of violence. Shin doesn't hold back. From here until the end of the chapter. I awoke in a room surrounded by Yakuza members. I summoned a large amount of mirage blades around me, then shot them out at the members, killing all of them. I walked forwards, seeing chronostasis. Shin, are you a part of the 8 bullets? Chronostasis, no, I am part of Overhaul's inner circle. One of his personal assistants. Shin, I can kill you then. Chronostasis, what? Shin, I was told to take the 8 bullets alive, but you're not a part of the 8 bullets. Chronostasis suddenly felt the world slowly going dark. Shin, unlike Izuku, I have no limits on my power, so I'm always at 100%. Chronostasis, what did you do to me? I pulled something from behind me. Shin, looking for this? Chronostasis suddenly looked down at his 𝗧𝗓 and saw a bleeding hole. Chronostasis, sheet. I watched as he fell over and died. I threw his heart at him. Shin, take this back. It's too twisted for my liking. That was too far, Shin. Hey, he wasn't part of the 8 bullets, and he was the one who directly helped overhaul 𝗵𝗃𝗃. You're lucky I didn't do worse. Oh, never mind then, I forgot what chronostasis did. You will let me deal with overhaul and you can have all of the fun out there now. Even the 8 bullets? Yes, I don't care anymore. Hey. I walked forwards, leaving a trail of BLD behind me as I killed every Yakuza member that walked in my path. I was mostly using the Yamato, but I occasionally used the Smith & Wesson that was strapped to my hip. I entered a room full of different bird-looking people. Toya Setsuno, Yuhojo, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏, Kendo Rappa and Hekiji. Shin Nemoto must be with Overhaul and Mimic. Toya tried to take the Yamato from me, but he couldn't, which confused him. He looked at me confused. He looked even more confused when he saw my sword drawn. Toya, When did he? Before he could finish, his head rolled off his shoulders and I was behind him, standing next to 𝗵𝗃 𝗃𝗃 put a barrier up around himself. Kendo's arms fell off. I twisted around to 𝗃𝗃's barrier and cut it. He looked surprised as his barrier broke. I turned around and faced 𝗃𝗃 as 𝗃𝗃 split in half. I pulled out my gun and shot 𝗃𝗃 in the head as I walked over to you, who was backing away. I shot another bullet at Soromitsu, but he ate it. I decided to cut his head off. You was the only one left alive. He was still backing away from me. He then slipped in the BLD that was pooling on the floor. I dashed forwards and sliced his head off. I'm not one to squander an advantage. I cleaned my blade and sheathed it. I walked off in the direction of Overhaul's office. I could sense his vile aura coming from a doorway. I pulled the door open. I saw a little bird-like man. I watched as a hand popped out of the puppet trying to grab me, but I sliced 𝗵𝗃 into a million pieces. Overhaul looked shocked and annoyed to see me walk into his room with bloody shoes. I saw 𝗵𝗃 standing behind him. Overhaul and 𝗵𝗃, who are you? Shin, Izuku, I am Izuku Sparta. Overhaul and 𝗵𝗃, why is your hair white? Shin, Izuku, because Izuku isn't in control. Overhaul looked perplexed. 𝗵𝗃 looked dead. Shin, Izuku, oops, got some of 𝗵𝗃's BLD on you. Overhaul looked behind him just as 𝗵𝗃's head fell into his lap. He looked back at Shin, Izuku, and started to react to the BLD hives started to form on his head as he got upset. He watched as my eyes returned to green. His hair returned to green. He regained control. Izuku POV. I looked at Overhaul who was covered in BLD. Izuku, it's time to finish this. Overhaul, yes. As Overhaul approached me, I pulled out my gun and shot both of his hands, then both of his kneecaps. He howled in pain as I walked up to him. I summoned Yamato and chopped both of his hands off before he could use his quirk to heal himself. As he was about to talk again, I pointed my gun and shot him in the neck. He would bleed out. I turned around and left. I was going to go see if my classmates needed help. Izuku POV. I walked out to the main area of the 𝗳𝗃𝗃 Hasaikai base. I saw that Rikiya was being quickly moved due to his injuries. Nizu, comms, Izuku, why did you leave the rest of the 8 bullets underground? We needed to detain them. Izuku, everyone, I will explain at the debrief. Return to Nizu's office. I opened a portal to Nizu's office. Once I was through, I opened 4 more portals, one leading to where Nizu was, one to 𝗧𝗵𝗃, one to A Squad and one to Devil Squad. Once everyone was laying down and resting, I decided to tell them about Shin and what he did to the 8 bullets. Izuku, well, Nizu, all of the 8 bullets, other than Didoro and Rikiya, are dead. Nizu, I told you not to kill them. Izuku, I didn't. Nizu, huh? Shoto, is this about the hair and eye color change? Izuku, yes. Shoto's eyes lit up at this, and pulled a notebook out of his non-existent pockets. Shoka, Katsumi, and Izumi, how do you do that? Shoto, Izuku is a better explainer. Izuku, yeah, you just store the book somewhere in the 4th wall. Everyone sans Shoto, what? I look towards the wall and point. Izuku, brain hurts, this makes no sense. I look back at the wall, noticing a figure standing there. He had a name badge that held one word. Damn it. There's a hole in the 4th wall now. Great job, Izuku. I told you that you and Shoto could store books in this wall, not blow holes in it. Izuku, sorry author. Anyway, back to the 8 bullets. Nizu, who killed them? Izuku, my alternate personality, Shin. I only killed Kai Chisaki. Nizu, and how well can you hold him back? Izuku, he isn't really able to come out whenever he wants, so, pretty well. Nizu, well, you all need sleep. We will do a proper debrief tomorrow. Go back to the dorms and rest over the coming weekend. We all returned to the dorms after Nizu dismissed us. Once I entered the dorm, I saw Eri sleeping on the couch. I left her there for now as I had one last thing to tell everyone. I took them to my room and sat them down. Izuku, now, the Katsuki problem. Shoto, what is there to talk about? Izuku, if he's been kidnapped, we save him next time we see the League. Katsumi, and if he's gone willingly? Izuku, then hold me back. Hanako and Izumi. What? Katsumi, you deserve some revenge against him. Izuku, I want to see what Shoto and Shoko would do to him. Shoto, fun. I sent everyone back to their rooms and went to go grab Eri. Seeing as she was asleep, I picked her up and carried her to our room and placed her in her bed. I flopped down in my bed. Hanako's bed was empty as she had gone to get a glass of water. I closed my eyes, waiting for sleep to take me. I heard the sound of the door opening. I listened as Hanako walked past me to her bed. She placed a glass on her bedside table as she walked back to the door. I was confused and tried to think of why she would need to go back out. I felt my blanket lift up and I felt her lay down on my... Hanako, Aizu, you awake? I didn't respond. I wanted to see what she would do. She gripped me tighter and I could feel her shaking. Hanako, tonight scared me. I thought I was going to lose you. I didn't want to find out that you were dead. Please don't ever leave me, Aizu. After she finished talking, she moved to get up. I grabbed her and pulled her back. Izuku, I will never leave you, Hana. Hanako, what? Huh? You were awake. Izuku, yes. Please stay, I don't want to be alone tonight. Hanako, of course dear. Third person POV. They stayed like that for most of the night. Izuku woke up early. He left and started to cook breakfast for the rest of class 1 and Hanako was the first to come out of her room at 4:10, complaining that her human pillow left her. Izuku laughed while he prepared breakfast for the class. Everyone eventually filed out and saw that Izuku had made bacon, egg, cheese, and avocado tacos. Izuku had already eaten his food and decided to go outside and talk to Shin. Hello there, Shin. Good morning, Shin Izuku. Who are you? What the? I did say someone else was here. All right. What is your name and how did you get here? My name is Urizen. I was placed here by the one you call the quirk merchant. Oh, that must have been when he placed his hand on me during the sports festival. Bingo. So, what will you do, Urizen? Not much. I don't want to work with the quirk merchant and his acquaintance. All right, as long as you don't cause too much trouble, I'm okay with that. After leaving my mindscape, I walked back inside and turned on the news. Reporter, breaking news. Yakuza-themed house attacked. Info revealed today shows that the Yakuza-themed house was actually a real Yakuza base. An unknown group of individuals were seen entering and exiting the base. One question on everyone's minds. Who were the attackers, and what was their motivation? 𝗵𝗃, Eri, 𝗧𝗏𝗪. Izuku, yeah, Yakuza. They are like gangs. Eri gangs. Like over. Izuku placed his hand over her mouth before she finished what she was saying. They looked at the screen as the reporter listed all of the Yakuza that were killed in the attack while showing images of said members. Reporter, notable bodies found were that of the 8 bullets along with the inner circle and Overhaul himself. The heroes have been trying to find a way to get in and take down this Yakuza group for ages. Now, an unknown group of individuals blasted through the entire base in one night. 𝗵𝗃. One night. Eri's eyes widened at hearing Overhaul's name. She looked up at Izuku and he winked at her. Eri smiled and hugged her father. After the news announcement, Izuku called his class and asked them if they needed anything from the shops. Izuku nodded as he wrote everything down in his phone. He then called Nizu to get permission to leave the school premises. A few people were shocked by Izuku having Nizu's phone number. Izuku, well, he is my uncle after all. This confused some people even more. Before more questions were asked, Izuku opened a portal and ran inside. Izuku, I'm not in the mood for questions. Mina, and I thought I could have some fun. Izuku jumped high. Mina looked up at Izuku as he was standing on a light pole. Mina, did I scare you? Izuku, you think? Mina, sorry, I just had some questions. Izuku sat on the light pole before sliding off the edge and landing gracefully next to Mina. Izuku, fine. But you have to help carry the shopping. Mina pondered this for a second. Mina, deal. The two walked to the shop, chatting casually. It was a warm morning. Izuku decided to take his jumper off. He threw the jumper through a portal that he opened to his room. Mina, that reminds me. Izuku, yeah, what's up? Mina, when you talked about all of the bullying you experienced in school, It reminded me of my middle school days. Izuku, oh I see. What with your cute appearance? Mina smiled at the compliment. She poked at a scar that was poking out from Izuku's short-sleeve shirt. Mina, I was bullied because I was different. And I can see that you have scars to show for it as well. Izuku, oh this old thing. Yeah, that was my first scar, although it wasn't from bullying. It was from saving someone. There was a young boy who had slipped and was holding on to the side of a drop into a lake. I grabbed him and pulled him up. However, I slipped and fell in his place. I asked him to help, but he took one look at my shoes and walked away. I fell into the lake and badly cut my shoulder. Mina looked at Izuku with wide eyes as he retold the story. Mina, shoes? Izuku pulled out his phone to show her his old shoes. Izuku, these shoes symbolized me being part of the quirkless population. Mina, yeah, my mother told me to avoid anyone wearing shoes like this. Izuku, anyway, back to my scars. You saw the other scars I had during the sports festival, correct? Mina, yeah, kind of. Izuku lifted the front of his shirt up to show her. Izuku, these are from the bullying. Mina, that hand one. It's from Katsuki, right? Izuku dropped his shirt back down as he answered the question. Izuku, yes. That was from Katsuki. Mina, I swear, when he gets out of that hospital bed, I'm going to melt him. Izuku, thanks for the offer, Mina, but I think we should change the topic away from murder, as we have arrived at the shops now. Mina, all right. Izuku and Mina walked around the shops for a while. Once the stuff had been paid for, Izuku opened a portal and placed the stuff on the kitchen counter. Once everything on the list had been ticked off, Mina asked if they were going through the portal again. Izuku nodded at this. Before he could open a portal, something caught his eye. There was a hairdresser that said that they dyed hair. Mina followed after Izuku as he walked to the shop. She shrugged to herself, seeing as she didn't have much to do that day anyway. Mina sat in a waiting chair while she watched Izuku get his hair dyed. He got everything other than the ends dyed white. Mina smiled as she saw that his hair now matches Hanako's. Izuku paid at the counter and walked over to where Mina was standing. Izuku, ready to go? Mina, yep. Izuku, okay, ladies first. Mina, no. After you. I insist. Mina looked at Izuku and the two laughed. Izuku suddenly went serious and shoved Mina through the portal. The last thing she saw before the portal closed was Izuku with 10 swords impaled in his body. UA dorms, Class 1A. Mina, Izuku. The class ran to the kitchen after hearing Mina scream. Hanako, what happened? Mina, we were joking around together, then he pushed me through the portal and then he was stabbed by someone or something. Hanako, don't worry. He will be back soon. There is almost no one who can hold him down. In the meantime, let's tell Aizawa about this and see what he and the teachers can do. All for one POV. All for one, Lord Mundus. The demons were able to capture Izuku. Mundus, excellent. Prepare for the next attack. All for one. Tomura is going to try and recruit Stain. Mundus, but he will fail. I watched as Mundus shrank down into a more human form. Mundus, release some demons on Hosu when Tomura fails to recruit Stain. The gates to hell open soon. Third-person POV. Izuku woke up in a bar. It smelled musty and of rotten wood. He looked around the room. The only person Izuku saw was 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗓. Izuku, hey, Misty, what am I doing here? 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗓, the name's 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗓, boy. Our MST wants to have a little chat. Oh, don't bother breaking out of the cuffs. They are quirk restraining. Pretty strong to get. The sound of tearing metal could be heard. Izuku, good thing I don't have a quirk. Izuku ripped the 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃s apart like they were made of butter. Izuku, I have already had a chat to all for one at the sports festival. Izuku shot 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗓's hand with a mirage blade. Izuku, goodbye, iodine man. Izuku ran to the window and jumped out. He looked down and saw the shocked faces of the league members. Izuku landed on Shigaraki and punched him in the jaw. Izuku, that's for the USJ. Izuku jumped to avoid an attack from a girl who appeared to be a student. 1. Come on, let me see your BLD. Izuku, Izuku's body was suddenly engulfed in blue flames. Izuku turned and looked at the guy trying to roast him alive. He had brown hair and his skin was barely hanging on with massive staples in it. Izuku, need a glass of water, you Todoroki ripoff. 2. Why you? The flames got more intense and Izuku chuckled at this. Izuku, hit a nerve did I? Shigaraki, 𝗬𝗍𝗶𝗍. Stuff. We need him alive. Izuku looked at Shigaraki in surprise. Izuku, look who's grown up. And your name is 𝗬𝗍𝗶𝗍? 𝗬𝗍𝗶 stopped his flames. He glared at Izuku. Izuku, Tuya. 𝗬𝗍𝗶 flinched at that name. His fire started to flare up. 𝗬𝗬𝗶, how do you know that name? Izuku, do you not remember me? It's me. Izuku. 𝗬𝗬𝗶, Izuku. Izuku activated his SDT form. 𝗬𝗬𝗶 jumped back, thinking he was going to attack. Izuku, metallic, well, I don't know why you faked your death, but remember cousin, anarchy rules. Izuku flew off in the direction of UA. 𝗬𝗬𝗶 watched him go, slack-jawed. Shigaraki, him in. 1. Who was he, Shiggy? Shigaraki, he was a valuable asset, Toga. Toga, and all I wanted was to see him bleed. Shigaraki, another time. We still need to recruit some more people before the training camp. 𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗘 warped to their position with a bleeding hand. 𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗘, let's move to the 𝗵𝗃 ward base. This 𝗵𝗃𝗃 base is compromised. 𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗘 opened a warp gate and led everyone through it. Dorms. Everyone ran outside as they heard the sound of a body hitting the floor. Izuku, Oi. Mina, Izuku? Hanako, Aizu. Izuku was tackled into a hug from Hanako. Hanako, what happened? Izuku, the 𝗏𝗏 were trying to do something with me. I don't know what. They wanted me to talk to their MSTR. Izumi had a confused look on her face. Izuku beckoned to her. Izuku, I will be back, I just have to slap the sheet out of 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗔 dumbass. With that, Izuku opened a portal to 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗔's office and walked through followed by Izumi. 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗔's office. Izuku slapped 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗔 into a wall. He pulled his head out of the new hole in his wall. Izuku, you gave her one for all, painted a big target on her back, and didn't tell her about all for one. Izumi, all for one? Izuku sighed and explained who all for one is. Izuku, and now onto a personal part. 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗔, I knew he gave you your quirk. Izuku, no. I'm still quirkless, dumbass. I went on an undercover mission into 𝗵𝗃 ward and met a man by the name of 𝗃𝗏𝗧𝗏. He was all for one. I talked to him, he said I should join him. I declined. I met him at the sports festival and he blackmailed me. He may force me to go with him next time I see him. I just wanted to inform you of that. Shin, that's not the whole truth, is it? Izuku, no. I've finally figured out how he has access to demons. Mundus. Shin, this is worse than I thought. 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏, let's beat his butt. We'll show him who the true demon king is. Izuku, we will. Izumi, what blackmail do you mean? Izuku, you guys. He could have easily killed all of you at the sports festival. Izumi, when do you think his next move will be? Izuku, I'm not sure. Probably after the internships. Izuku opened a portal and signaled for Izumi to follow him. They met up with their class and they all worried over Izuku. Little did they know, Izuku would disappear very soon. Third-person POV. Aizawa, today you will be deciding who you will intern with as well as deciding on hero names. I have placed all of your letters on the desk already. If you need help, I'll be on the floor over here. Please, don't need help. Midnight will be helping you decide your hero names. With that, Aizawa fell onto the floor and zipped up his yellow sleeping bag. Midnight entered the classroom and told everyone how hero names would work. He wasn't paying attention. He already had his hero name. He looked up at his sister's name. Izumi, the psychic hero, Golden Tornado. Midnight, I love it. Ryoshi was next. Ryoshi, the legendary devil hunter, Dante. Next was Shoto. Shoto, Permafrost. Midnight, wonderful. Then Shoka was up. Shoka, Glacier. Midnight, such an appealing name. Katsumi was next. Katsumi, the explosive hero, Hellflame. Midnight, that's hot. Then Hanako. Hanako, the devil hunter, Angelica. Midnight. Finally, Izuku. Izuku, the Alpha and the Omega, Virgil. Midnight, what a wonderfully historic name. Now was the time for the students to look at their letters, internship letters. Izuku looked through his letters. One of them caught his eye. Is that? Izuku, yeah, an internship from Miruko. Class 1A, what? Momo, Miruko has never interned with a UA student. Hanako, are you going to accept? Izuku, yes, I think I will. Izuku then got up and walked out to go see 𝗍𝗍. A few minutes later, Izuku arrived at 𝗍𝗍's office and had his hand up to knock on the door. 𝗍𝗍, come in. Izuku opened the door and was immediately tackled by Eri. Eri, Papa. Izuku, hey Snowball. How's 𝗍𝗍 been treating you? Eri, good. Eri moved to the side to allow 𝗍𝗍 and Izuku talk. Izuku handed his internship form to 𝗍𝗍. 𝗍𝗍, Miruko hey? Better watch your back. Izuku, if you want to fight me, then come. 𝗍𝗍, you saw her. Miruko dropped from the ceiling with a massive grin on her face. Miruko, I came here to test your strength. The instant those words left her mouth, there was a huge gust of wind as Izuku appeared in front of her, his fist millimeters away from her face. Izuku, is that enough of a showcase? Izuku pulled his fist away from Miruko's face. He heard a thumping noise. He looked around to find the source of the noise. It was Miruko's foot. Miruko, I want him as my intern. 𝗍𝗍, he has already handed in his form with your name on it. Miruko, yeah. Izuku just waved to the two and walked out. He heard the bell for lunch go. He walked out to the lunch area and got his food. He sat down at his table with his group. Shoto, so, an internship with Miruko. Sounds like a painful time. Izuku, yeah, I've met her in the field once. I'll message you guys every day to give you updates on what's happening. Katsumi, sounds like a great idea. Time skip, start of internships, Monday. Today was the day. Everyone was excited to go to their internships. Ryoshi was interning with Ryukyu, Hanako wanted to learn stealth, so she interned with Edgeshot. Izumi went with Gran Torino, Shoto and Shoko went to Endeavor's agency, and Katsumi went with Best Jeanist. Izuku opened a portal for each of his friends, before opening one to Miruko's agency. He opened the door to the building in front of him. The first thing that he saw was an 𝗍𝗍's reception area. The second thing that he saw was Miruko's foot. Izuku ducked under the kick, before grabbing the back of her shirt and pulling her back into the building. Miruko, great. This will be fun. Izuku sighed, knowing full well what he got himself into. Izuku, what are we doing today? Miruko, straight to the point. I like it. Today we will be sparring. Izuku, sounds good to me. Hours later, Izuku was laying on the floor, sweating buckets. He looked up at Miruko while breathing heavily. Izuku, huff man. I need more stamina to keep up with you, Miruko. Miruko was actually surprised by how long he lasted. He almost beat her a couple of times. Miruko, no, that was enough for today. You need some rest. The only thing that you are missing is experience. Then you may be able to beat me. Izuku, I probably could have beaten you with my Sin Devil trigger form. Miruko, yes, but you probably would have caused too much damage. Izuku, yeah, whatever. Miruko, what was that? Miruko pinched Izuku's ear and pulled it towards her. Izuku, oh wow. Alright, sorry, I understand, Miruko. Miruko released his ear. Miruko, good. You have to remember not to cause collateral damage where possible. We'll be going on patrol on the day after tomorrow to Hosu. Izuku nodded at this. Izuku got up and walked over to a couch and fell asleep. Day 2 of internships. Tuesday. Izuku woke up and grabbed his phone. He saw 3 messages, so he opened his phone and informed his friends of the day. Phone messages. Izuku, morning everyone. Shoka, morning. Shoto. Katsumi, morning, people. Izumi, morning. Ryoshi, hello, what's up? Hanako, hey everyone. Izuku, yesterday Miruko and I sparred for 7 hours. Are you good? Izuku, yeah, today will be more of the same and tomorrow will be a patrol in Hosu. Izumi, same carrot. Shoto, carrot. Soka, carrot. Katsumi, isn't Ida in Hosu? Izuku, yeah, that's why I'm glad to go there. I want to try and stop him from being too rash. Shoka, didn't the hero killer injure his brother? Izuku, yeah, that's what I'm worried about. If I see him, I'm gonna try and stop him from going for revenge against 𝗧𝗍𝗍. Ryoshi, good idea. Izuku, 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗵𝗃 Naruko's calling to do more training. Izuku placed his phone down and walked to the shower. Once clean and dressed, he walked out into the kitchen and grabbed some food. Naruko walked over and greeted Izuku. The two then heard a noise in a cabinet. The cabinet was opened and 𝗍𝗍 popped out. 𝗍𝗍, morning you too. Naruko jumped back, wondering how 𝗍𝗍 got there. Izuku, morning uncle. How's Eri doing? 𝗍𝗍, she made a breakthrough in her training today. She managed to turn off her quirk by herself. Izuku, that's wonderful. Give her my congratulations. 𝗍𝗍 nodded, before walking into the dishwasher and closing it behind him. Naruko walked over and opened it. He had vanished. Naruko, what in the actual? Izuku, you get used to it after seeing him do it all the time. Naruko, also, uncle? Izuku explained that 𝗍𝗍 and the Todorokis were relatives. They were more honorary relatives as they were close family friends. Naruko, well, that's interesting. Now, on to sparring. Day 3 of internships, Wednesday. It was late in the day. Izuku and Naruko were on a train with Izumi and Gran Torino. They were all casually talking before a Nomu had slammed into the side of a train. Gran Torino told Izumi to stay. Naruko's foot started to thud against the ground. Naruko, I give you full permission as your intern teacher to act in any way seen fit. Izuku, yes ma'am. Naruko, don't say ma'am, you make me feel old. Naruko jumped out of the hole in the train. Izuku shrugged at his sister and jumped through the hole, activating his SDT form. It was hell. Izuku didn't expect this. There were gnomes, demons and devils everywhere. Izuku, Naruko. This is bad. Devils are back. That means that there is a new demon king. Before Izuku could say anything more, he was pounced on by a devil. Izuku immediately sliced it in half. Izuku summoned 𝗬𝗍𝗍𝗍. Izuku, save as many people as you can. Kill any devils you come across. 𝗬𝗬𝗍𝗍 nodded and ran off. Izuku used his senses to find where Ida was. He was in a back alley. There were two other presences there. One was a pro hero and the other seemed to be 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍. Izuku flew to where they were. Ida was laying in a back alley. 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍 was bearing down on him. He couldn't move. It must be 𝗧𝗍𝗍's quirk. Just before the blade reached his neck, it snapped. Izuku had landed in front of Ida. He looked at 𝗧𝗍𝗍. Ida, no. Go. This is my fight. Izuku, really looks like it, dumbass. Izuku then turned to 𝗧𝗍𝗍 and stared him down. Izuku, it's time to end your murdering spree, 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍. 𝗧𝗍𝗍, and how are you going to do that? You're just a student. Izuku, by putting your 𝗧𝗱𝗧 but in the ICU. Last time, Ida was laying in a back alley. 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍 was bearing down on him. He couldn't move. It must be 𝗧𝗍𝗍's quirk. Just before the blade reached his neck, it snapped. Izuku had landed in front of Ida. He looked at 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍. Ida, no. Go. This is my fight. Izuku, really looks like it, dumbass. Izuku then turned to 𝗧𝗍𝗍 and stared him down. Izuku, it's time to end your murdering spree, 𝗧𝗍𝗍. 𝗧𝗍𝗍, and how are you going to do that? You're just a student. Izuku, by putting your 𝗧𝗱𝗧 but in the ICU. Third-person POV. 𝗧𝗍𝗍 glared at the young boy who looked like a devil. Izuku's SDT form faded and he was back to being a normal-looking guy. Green eyes, overcoat and green ends on the hair. 𝗧𝗍𝗍 moved first. He ran forwards and swung his sword in an overhead slash. Izuku deflected the strike, before grabbing 𝗧𝗍𝗍's wrist and twisting it, making him drop the sword. 𝗧𝗍𝗍 pulled out a knife and stabbed Izuku's shoulder. Izuku grabbed the blade and kept it in his shoulder. Izuku, your quirk has something to do with BLD. So I'm not letting you get any of mine. 𝗧𝗍𝗍, he figured out my quirk? Izuku pulled the knife out of his shoulder. The wound healed and the BLD evaporated. Izuku grinned at 𝗧𝗍𝗍𝗍. Stain realized that it may be difficult to use his quirk on this boy. Izuku pulled out Mirage Edge and shot 2 green slashes out in an X formation, before crouching down, seemingly charging another attack. Stain dodged the first 2 slashes and ran at Izuku. When Stain was close enough, Izuku released the final part of the attack, a slow-moving horizontal slash. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗃. Stain was blasted back into a wall. His head whipped back and hit the wall with a sickening thud, before he slid down the wall and fell on the ground. Izuku wrapped him up before calling Miruko to his position. Miruko arrived and Izuku told her what happened quickly, before running off to the main city. Izuku saw a winged Nomu was carrying Izumi. Izuku jumped and flew at the flying Nomu at incomprehensible speeds. Shoka saw him and cheered. She knew the horrible night would be over soon. Once the Nomu was killed, it dropped Izumi. Izumi used her telekinesis on herself to lower herself to the ground. After Izuku killed the flying Nomu, he dashed at another one, only for it to see him and transform. Izuku, sheet. Another one can transform. Izuku watched as the Nomu transformed into Cavalier Angelo. Izuku, sigh, this is the guy that Dante beat to get his dumbass motorbike weapon. Izuku blocked Angelo's overhead slam with Yamato. Izuku felt lightning flow through his body. He threw the sword off and jumped back. Izuku shot off 2 judgment cuts, slicing off his wings. Angelo shot lightning bolts at Izuku. Izuku was hit by a few. He was on his knees, breathing heavily as his healing tried to catch up with all of the damage he had taken. Cavalier Angelo was walking up to him. Miruko, Luna fall. Miruko fell out from the sky, kicking of Angelo's left arm. Izuku's healing had finally finished, so he got up and stood next to Miruko. Izuku pulled out Beowulf and nodded to Miruko. They both ran at Angelo. Miruko, Luna rush. Izuku, kick 13. Izuku and Miruko attacked Angelo with their own kick barrages. Finally, with a combined kick to the head, Angelo fell over, dead. His skull was crushed. When Miruko and Izuku landed on the ground, they looked at each other. Miruko, you head right, I've got left. Izuku nodded and ran off to the right. Izuku encountered many simple enemies from before. They were easy and only took 1 slash to kill. Izuku was slammed into a wall by a red-bodied creature with a forearm blade. This thing was quick. Quicker than him. He couldn't even see it move. The creature vanished, before reappearing behind Izuku and slamming him into a wall. The devil did the same thing again. This time, Izuku used Judgment Cut, and before the creature could hit him, Izuku watched as its body disintegrated. He turned and walked down the street. Hour later, Izuku met up with Miruko, 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Miruko congratulated Izuku on capturing Stain and helping her beat Cavalier Angelo. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 congratulated his kids on keeping a level head in the face of danger. 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was berating Izumi on disobeying his orders and getting injured in the process. They were all sent to the hospital for an overnight stay. Izuku merely took it as an obligation. He had no injuries after all. The next day, Thursday, Izuku woke up in the hospital room with his friends. He looked around, seeing that they were all already awake. Izuku sat up at the sound of a door opening. The Hosu chief of police walked into the room. He looked at the group. He glared at Izuku the longest before starting his speech. Izuku wasn't paying attention as he was in the right. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏, and you killed that Nomu with Miruko on live TV. You also went after Stain. You're as guilty as these 3. Izuku was ticked off by this statement. Izuku, did you even talk with my mentor? She told me that I was allowed to act as I see fit. The chief looked at Izuku. He sighed and said he was free to go and was allowed credit for capturing Stain and killing the Nomus. Izuku smiled and walked out. Once the door was shut, Izuku got a message from Miruko. It said to meet her at the train station. Izuku jumped out the nearest window and activated his SDT form and flew off. Izuku landed at the train station. He saw Miruko and waved. She walked over and Izuku opened a portal to her agency. Izuku, ladies first. Miruko walked through the portal. Izuku looked back and saw a purple mist disappear. He groaned and walked through the portal, which closed behind him, and ducked under a kick from Miruko. The day after the last chapter, Friday. Third-person POV. Izuku was sitting on a couch in Miruko's agency. He watched her grumbling over paperwork. It was funny to watch her struggle with it, but he decided he would go help her. Izuku, I'm coming to help, Miruko. Izuku walked up to her desk and looked at what she was doing. He saw a set of adoption papers. Izuku, who are you adopting? Miruko, you don't have a parental guardian and you need one for some school outings. Izuku smiled at this. He leaned over and hugged Miruko. She stiffened, before relaxing and returning the hug. Izuku, thank you, Miruko. Miruko, you can call me Rumi, kiddo. Izuku smiled, then pointed at a place on the paper. Izuku, okay, put your name here, my name goes there. You need to sign here. Address there, phone number goes under it. Sign again on the second page. And done. Miruko leaned back in her chair and sighed in relief. Izuku smiled at her. Izuku, I'll go mail that letter. Miruko grinned and threw the letter at him. He caught it. Izuku, we can go on another patrol after I mail this. Izuku summoned the Yamato and opened a portal to the nearest mailbox. He put the letter in and walked back into the agency. He raised an eyebrow at Miruko, who had changed from her casual outfit to her hero outfit in the 1 second that he was out. She shrugged and called him to follow her. Izuku watched the graceful way that Miruko jumped from rooftop to rooftop. Izuku jumped up to the rooftops and copied her movements. Izuku suddenly stopped when he heard a noise. He looked around, trying to find the direction. Miruko walked over to ask him what he was doing, but he put a finger on her lips to quiet her. Izuku heard it again and his face blanched. He activated SDT and flew up in the air. He pointed northeast and Miruko nodded before jumping in that direction. Izuku flew at top speed, arcs of green lightning flying off his body at the speed that he was flying. He hit the ground and a massive explosion went off. He turned around and saw something that chilled him to the bone. Izuku called Ryoshi to come and help if possible. He smiled a bit when he heard that him and Ryukyu were in the area. Izuku looked up at the sound of a dragon. He saw a missile dropping from the dragon. That missile hit Mundus and slammed him into the ground. Ryoshi jumped off of Mundus and landed next to Izuku. The two were both in their SDT forms and waited for Mundus's next move. Izuku ran forwards and tried to chop his head off. Mundus dodged back, through a portal and vanished. Izuku immediately looked around and surveyed the damage. He saw a lot of dead people. Mundus had absorbed people's BLD to grow in strength. Miruko arrived at the scene and was shocked by all the death. Ryukyu dropped from the sky and landed next to her in turn. Once the two had given their statement to the police, Izuku left with Miruko and Ryoshi returned to the skies with Ryukyu. Not much of interest happened during the rest of the patrol. Once the two returned to the agency, they did a few sparring matches before watching some movies. And that was how the last day of the internships went. Day, Saturday. When Izuku was leaving, he told Miruko that she could come visit the dorms anytime she wanted, she just had to message him. She agreed. Miruko, goodbye kiddo, see you soon. Izuku, laters, Rumi. Izuku walked through his portal. He arrived in the dorms. His friends decided to come back by train, so Izuku was alone. 20 minutes later, the door burst open and Hanako barged in. She saw him and ran to him. The two hugged. Hanako wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him in for an embrace. They stayed like that until they needed air, and broke off the embrace. Soon, everyone else had returned. The class was all talking about what would be happening next. Time skipped to Monday. Izuku walked into his classroom. Aizawa then explained to them about the next outing they were having. The combined training camp. Class 1A and 1B were all going to the camp. Izuku had a bad feeling but kept it hidden. Once class was finished, Izuku walked to the principal's office. He had decided to surprise Eri with his return. Izuku knocked on the door. Nizu, come in. Izuku opened the door. There was a 1-second delay before a missile flew into his arms. Izuku caught her and spun her around. Izuku, hello Snowball. I'm back. Eri, Papa. Nizu, you can take her, we have finished class for today. Eri. Izuku picked up Eri and placed her on his shoulders. The father and daughter duo ran around the school, having fun. They bumped into a few people before Izuku grabbed Eri off his shoulders and held her in his arms before jumping out of the window and activating his SDT form and flying to the dorms. All for one's base. FO, when will we attack next, Lord Mundus? Mundus, attack at the camp. FO, what if the heroes find us? Mundus, not a problem at all. We have 2 devils guarding this place. We have Artemis and 𝗵𝘃𝗲 to protect this area. FO, thanks, Lord Mundus. I will inform my successor. Mundus, good. Third-person POV. Class 1A was filing into a bus. Izuku noticed that Aizawa had a creepy smile, but he didn't think much of it at the moment. The wheels started rolling and the class started talking. Izuku got a message, so he pulled out his phone. Izumi looked over and saw that he was messaging someone called Mom. Mom, they finally messaged me back. It's official. Izuku, really? Mom? Yeah. Izuku cheered. He looked around, noticing that he had garnered everyone's attention. Izuku, sorry. Hanako looked over. She saw that Izuku was messaging Mom. Hanako, Aizu, who is that? Izuku looked over at her. Hanako was emitting a venomous aura. Izuku just smiled calmly at her. Izuku, my new mom. Everyone in his group were shocked. Izumi, new. Ryoshi, who is it? Izuku smiled. Izuku, Rumi Usajiyama. More commonly known as the rabbit hero, Miruko. Class 1A, what? Izuku, oops, it seems like everyone heard. The class started to question Izuku about his new mom. Izuku had no way to stop the questioning, so he pretended to fall asleep on Hanako's shoulder. Soon, Aizawa stopped the bus in the middle of nowhere. Aizawa got everyone off the bus. Izuku was looking through the forest. He saw a building in the distance. He groaned and turned to glare at Aizawa. Izuku noticed his classmates panicking. Only now he noticed 2 of the wild pussycats standing there. Izuku looked over and nodded at Ryoshi. All of the other students got launched off the cliff. Hanako, Izuku and Ryoshi were floating over the pit. Mandalay, Eraser, send them down as well. Aizawa activated his quirk and Hanako turned back to normal and fell to the floor. Aizawa was shocked that Izuku and Ryoshi were still floating in their SDT forms. There was a sonic boom as Ryoshi flew to the camp. Izuku flipped off Aizawa before creating an even stronger sonic boom and following after Ryoshi. Time skip, the rest of 1A arrives. Achiko, you said 3 hours. 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗄, sorry, that was how long we would take. But you all did exceptionally well, especially you two. She said this while pointing at Shoto and Ida. 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗄, I call dibs. Before 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗄 could do anything, everyone jumped at the sound of clashing metal above. Everyone looked up and saw Izuku and Ryoshi fighting at full force overhead. Mandalay, well, you all look tired, we made dinner for you all this time. Tomorrow, you will have to make it yourselves. Mandalay telepathically relayed the information to Ryoshi and Izuku. Everyone walked into the cafeteria area and started to eat. Izuku watched a kid walk off with a look of disdain at his classmates. Izuku asked Mandalay who the kid was, and she told him that the kid's name was 𝗂𝗧 and he was her cousin's child. Her cousin and her husband died fighting a villain, and 𝗂𝗧 thought that they left him and didn't want him. Izuku decided to leave it be. Once dinner was finished, everyone had a bath in the hot springs before heading off to sleep. The next week was going to be a hell on earth for the class. Izuku smiled because he would be able to gain more power. He just hoped that the 𝗏 wouldn't do anything rash during the week. Third-person POV. Izuku woke up in the men's sleeping quarters. He looked at the time and shrugged to himself. What better time to start training than at 3 in the morning? Izuku walked out to the kitchen and made himself a coffee. He drank the coffee while he walked out to the field. He put the cup down and did 500 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, 20-minute plank, and sparred with Doppelganger until 5 o'clock. Everyone else walked out and saw a sweaty and shirtless Izuku training with his doppelganger. Izuku heard the rest come out and pointed at Ryoshi. Izuku, spar, now. Doppelganger vanished as Ryoshi walked up and summoned Devil Sword Dante. Ryoshi stabbed the sword into the ground and took his shirt off. Ryoshi, can't have you showing me up. Izuku grinned and the two started to spar. When Izuku and Ryoshi spar, the two always end up semi-conscious by the end of it, and this time was no different. Ryoshi swung an overhead slash and Izuku ducked under it and swapped to Beowulf and punched him in the stomach. Ryoshi slid back and grinned. The two sped towards each other at speeds that were practically invisible to most of the people watching. Mandalay, those two are beasts. Aizawa, that is true. They say that this is only about 5% of their full power. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗄, say what? Aizawa just nodded. Aizawa, oi you too. Ryoshi and Izuku stopped and looked at Aizawa. Aizawa, give the pussycats a show. Izuku, 30% with Sin Devil Trigger? Aizawa, yes. In the air, preferably. And let's make this a proper match, not just a spar. The two transformed and flew high into the sky. So high that they were only specks the size of ants to everyone else. The two powered up to 30%, which was their upper limit, lest they want to destroy a whole city in one slash. And the entirety of 1A felt the power. Class 1B happened to arrive at the moment that the two powered up. The class looked up and saw blasts of energy and sparks flying everywhere. There are the two devils. Everyone was shocked at their power. How could two people be that powerful? The WWP came and introduced themselves to the new group. They then sent everyone to their designated areas. After 20 minutes of fighting, Ryoshi fell to the ground and Izuku wasn't far behind. Once the two had eventually recovered, Izuku took Izumi into the forest to train her. Izuku, you can feel stuff with your telekinesis, right? Izumi, I think? Izuku, try and set up a bubble of telekinesis to feel the environment. Try to be able to do this subconsciously. Izuku then walked into the dark shadows of the forest, seemingly fading from existence. Izumi tried to set up a bubble. She failed the first few times. The fifth attempt she managed to feel Izuku running behind her to whack her with a stick he had found. She turned around and grabbed it before he hit her. Izuku, good. Now this time, grab it with the telekinesis. The two trained in the forest for hours until they were called in by the pussycats. They were told to make dinner. Izuku started to cook with Sato. The rest joined in to help. They were cooking a simple curry, so Izuku and Sato were able to teach them how to cook. When Izuku noticed Shoto lighting the fires with his quirk, he smiled. Soon the food was made and everyone enjoyed. Meanwhile, at the edge of the training camp forest, a group of hooded figures started to amass. One of them turned to a slightly shorter man. Cataclysm, blow it up. Back at the camp, Mandalay asked Izuku if he could take some food to 𝗏𝗏. Izuku agreed and looked for his presence. Izuku found him at a secluded cliff. Izuku, food. 𝗏𝗏 glared at him. Izuku, I know why you don't like us. We remind you too much of them. 𝗏𝗏 looked away from Izuku and just glared at the camp building. Izuku, they didn't leave you. They went to save people from that serial killer. 𝗏𝗏, WhatIf? Izuku, my parents. He said this while jabbing himself in the 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲. Izuku, my parents neglected me because I was quirkless. 𝗏𝗏 stopped and stared at Izuku. Izuku, they acted like I didn't exist. My life was hell because of bullying. Izuku lifted up his shirt. 𝗏𝗏 grimaced at the scars. Izuku, these are the receipts. 𝗏𝗏 sniffled. 𝗏𝗏, but they left me? Izuku pulled the kid into a hug. Izuku, think of it, what if they didn't stop him? What would have happened? How many people would he kill? How many more kids would become orphans like you and me? 𝗏𝗏 started to cry into Izuku's shirt. Izuku, let it all out. There, that's a good boy. Izuku suddenly flinched at the sound of an explosion. He stood up as a hooded figure landed in front of him. Izuku summoned Doppelganger, who picked up 𝗏𝗏. Before 𝗏𝗏 left, he recognized the man. 𝗏𝗏, that's him. Izuku eyed the man up and down. He took off his cloak and threw it away. Izuku's eyes widened in rage. Izuku, muscular. Muscular, You're on the capture list. No fun. Izuku glared at him. Izuku, well, that makes it easier for me. Muscular, what? Izuku disappeared from Muscular's view. His view started to change, he looked to be falling. He saw a foot behind him as his vision faded. Izuku kicked the severed head of Muscular into the forest. He looked at the forest and saw blue fire. Izuku growled at the sight. Izuku, 𝗬𝗲𝗍𝗍. Izuku activated his SDT and flew to the camp building. He landed in front of 𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗍. 𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗍, you're okay? BLD. Izuku, not mine. Izuku looked at Aizawa. Aizawa, tell the kids that they are allowed to use their quirks on the villains. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗄 was suddenly dragged by an invisible force, only to get suddenly dropped onto the floor as a person's head rolled next to her. A lizard guy that Izuku knew as Spinner shouted. Spinner, you killed Magna. The green ends of Izuku's hair turned white and his eyes became blue. Shin was in control now and he was all out of mercy. Shin, oh I'm sorry, you get to go meet them now. Shin sliced Spinner's head off before walking towards the forest. The teachers stared as the boy vanished into the forest. There was a loud boom and Shin flew out of the forest. Shin looked at the boy who approached him and glared. Bakugo, haha. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this. Shin, likewise, shitstain. Shin broke Bakugo's jaw with one punch. He flew into the forest and Shin followed. Shin, you think this is enough to stop me? Bakugo coughed up BLD. Shin, pathetic. No change since I last saw you. You're still scum. Bakugo stood up as his wounds healed. Bakugo, on the contrary, Deku. Last time, there was a loud boom and Shin flew out of the forest. Shin looked at the boy who approached him and glared. Bakugo, haha. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this. Shin, likewise, shitstain. Shin broke Bakugo's jaw with one punch. He flew into the forest and Shin followed. Shin, you think this is enough to stop me? Bakugo coughed up BLD. Shin, pathetic. No change since I last saw you. You're still scum. Bakugo stood up as his wounds healed. Bakugo, on the contrary, Deku. Third-person POV. Shin was slightly shocked at the prospect of Bakugo having more quirks, or maybe even a contract or a host situation with the devil. Shin's cold and calm blue eyes stared into the red pools of insanity that were Bakugo's eyes. Shin stepped forward. Suddenly, Shin felt numbness from the waist down and a rising feeling of nausea. He looked down at the fist embedded in his stomach, before looking back up at Bakugo. Tatara is Katsuki and Kaneki is Izuku/Shin. Shin coughed up BLD as Bakugo pulled his hand out of his newly made donut. Katsuki, would you look at that? Dunkin' Donuts should hire me. Shin stood back up as the wound almost immediately healed. Shin, so you really want to kill me that bad, eh? Katsuki, nah, you're on his list. Shin's face visibly paled. He remembered what AFO wanted. Shin hung his head. Katsuki, where is your confidence now? Katsuki moved closer and saw a grin on Shin's face. Katsuki, what's so amusing? Katsuki's eyes widened in amazement as he lost all feeling below his neck. Shin ran off to find Ragdoll as she was missing as well. Shin saw a man that he knew as Mr. Compress. Shin had a theory that if he was killed, his quirk would deactivate. He was right. The head of Mr. Compress landed next to Twice and Himiko who were on their way to Kurojari. Shin summoned Doppelganger to take Ragdoll back to the other members of the WWP. Toga, let me see you bleed. Shin just stared at her as he heard a voice that he was all too familiar with. Kurojari, stop Toga. He has agreed to come with us. At the same time, Hanako POV. I was running through this unusual gas. It was made to make anyone who breathes it and fall asleep, but I had got a gas mask from Momo. I was walking to the area where the gas was the densest, trying to avoid detection. Mustard, I can control this gas in any way I like. That means I can sense your movements within. Hanako, sheet. Before I could sprint at him, he shot my mask off of my face. I held my breath so that I wouldn't fall asleep. I saw his outline, but I fell to my knees before I could reach him. Mustard, pathetic. Now die like the filth you are. He held his gun up to my head. A tear rolled down my cheek. Hanako, sorry Aizu, but this is the end for me. I closed my eyes and waited for death. Bang. I heard a body flop to the floor and felt the rush of fresh air. I looked up to my savior and saw Izuku. But his eyes were blue. This was Shin. Shin, 𝗵𝗃 waste of space. 𝗬𝗏, get me the F out of here. A black misty portal opened behind him and he put one foot through. Hanako, Izu. Shin, rest now, this will all be over soon. One way or another. Training camp. Third-person POV. Aizawa, where is that problem child? Aizawa's eyes widened as he saw Katsuki Bakugo walk out from the 𝗓𝗨 with a newly stitched-up neck. Katsuki, he will be mad at me. I must pray for forgiveness for not killing the target. Aizawa thought his former student had gone mad. But unknown to him, it was something different. Katsuki looked at him and the WWP members next. To him, Katsuki, he will. Forgive me if I kill someone else. Katsuki ran at Tiger and pulled out a black staff with a pointed end. He managed to cut one of the WWP members, Tiger. Katsuki walked back a bit and liked the BLD from the spear. He then cut his wrist and used the BLD from that to draw a symbol in the ground. His wrist had healed and the symbol was complete. You get a cookie if you can guess what this symbol is. Katsuki's skin turned black and he had white skeletal markings as well. He was standing in the middle of the symbol and called out to 𝗬𝗏. Katsuki, oh portal. Get my weapon. A portal opened up and a 3-bladed scythe fell into his hand. Katsuki started simple. When Tiger ran at him, he stabbed himself in the leg. Tiger howled in pain. Tiger, how did he do that? He didn't even move. Katsuki, it's thanks to my new god. Aizawa, and who might that be? Katsuki stabbed himself multiple times with the scythe. The other leg, left arm, stomach, and finally, the heart. Tiger was dead. The WWP cried as Tiger slowly bled out. Katsuki walked away and said one last thing as he left. Katsuki, Jashin sends his regards. The weapon. Third-person POV. Nizu was worried. From most eyewitness accounts formed the training camp, Izuku seemed to have joined the 𝗏 and Katsuki Bakugo was immortal. He walked into a room where Izuku's friends were waiting. Izumi, he told me before. The 𝗏 used you as blackmail. Katsumi, yeah, well, I saw it with my own eyes. Nizu, quiet. Everyone went silent when they heard the principal's voice. Nizu, All Might and a few other teachers are going on a rescue mission as we speak. We will hear the words from the devil's mouth, so to speak. Ryoshi, why are you telling us this? Nizu smiled. Nizu, you will be joining us on the raid. 𝗵𝗃. Izuku, so, Jashin grants immortality to his most supportive followers? Katsuki, yes he does. Izuku nodded as he listened to Katsuki's words. Izuku, so, how long have you been a member of the church? Katsuki thought for a minute before answering. Katsuki, since I was 4. Izuku nodded. Izuku, that makes sense. I assume the personality change comes with the immortality? Bakugo nodded. Soon, the rest of the villains walked into the room and discussed what was going to happen. They talked about who their biggest obstacles would be. They soon heard a knock at the door. Pizza 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏. Twice, I didn't order a pizza / that's mine. Twice grabbed the doorknob and pulled open the door. He was met with the fist of All Might. All Might, I am here. Kamui Woods, lacquered chain prison. All of the villains were trapped by the wood. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 tried to open a portal, but he was stabbed by a red sheet of cloth. Shit, 1,000-sheet pierce. Izuku looked at the heroes and smiled. Izuku, glad to see that you decided to come and save me. But the boss isn't here. Izuku clapped his hands twice and black goop erupted from the mouths of all of the villains before they were teleported to the scene of a battle. Izuku looked at all for one inside. Izuku, you're giving them too much of an open space. Efo looked at the boy with a confused look. Izuku exploded into blue fire as Katsuki stretched and popped his shoulders. Izuku, allow me. Izuku charged at Endeavor. His blade was a millimeter from Endeavor's throat before he was pulled back by a red devil. Izuku, Ryoshi, come to stop me? Ryoshi, nah mate, I'm here to help you kill AFO. Izuku grinned widely and turned to the leader of the 𝗏. Izuku, looks like someone one-upped your deal, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 Shigaraki. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗏. Forced quirk activation. AFO used the quirk on 𝗬𝗃𝗁𝗏's body, teleporting the remaining LOV members to an unknown location. He started to float into the air. AFO, here is my ultimate combination of quirks. This was meant for All Might, but I guess that you two are stronger. Izuku, I'm going to charge up an attack of mine. Let's end this. AFO, spring-like limbs, multiplier, hypertrophy, rivet, air walk, spear-like bones, 4 kinetic booster quirks, 3 strength enhancer quirks. Izuku, life force slash. A massive explosion of dust, wind, and debris flew from the contact point. Once the dust cleared, AFO was still standing, but so was Izuku. AFO, 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲, my healing quirks are practically useless after that last attack. Izuku, you look tired. Have a rest, 𝗲𝗏𝗺. AFO, what do you mean? I am the new king of the underworld. BLD trickled from a hole in AFO's head. He flopped back and started to slowly bleed out. Izuku, if you want to be a king of the underworld, how about you build your castle there first? AFO shuddered out one last breath. Izuku, Ryoshi, who did you bring with you? Ryoshi, the whole gang. Izuku nodded. He saw the others running to their position. Izuku flinched as he heard an explosion behind him. He turned around and blocked a strike from Katsuki. Katsuki, well, you killed the old man. Excellent. Now I can freely kill you. Izuku jumped back to avoid a slash from the scythe. Izuku was forced onto the defensive. He waved his hand at Ryoshi to signal to him to say that this was his fight. Izuku and Katsuki brawled, each waiting for an opening from the other. Katsuki rushed in first. Izuku smiled at the reckless move and stabbed Katsuki in the 𝗧𝗍. Izuku made his sword vanish and swapped to Beowulf. Izuku grabbed the scythe after Katsuki recklessly threw an overhead slash. Izuku threw the scythe to the side. He was about to punch Katsuki when he felt a sword pierce through him from behind. Did you really fall for my act? Katsuki, thanks for the assist, Katsumi. Third-person POV. Izuku stood staring at his 2 former friends, both of who were revealed to be secret Jasonists. Izuku was furious. He grabbed Katsumi by the head and threw her at her brother. Izuku, I assume that she is immortal as well? Katsumi, I don't even know, let's test. Izuku was forced to dodge a slash from behind as Katsuki pulled his sword out from the ground by the rope attached to his waist. Ryoshi looked at Izuku and knew that something was wrong. There was a weird look on his face. Izuku put away his Beowulf and brought out his Yamato. He drew the sword and pointed the tip of the blade to his Izuku, heavy chain that does freeze my bones around. Izuku plunged the katana into his 𝗧𝗍𝗧, earning a scream from his sister and girlfriend. Izuku was split in 2. He managed to say one more thing before he transformed. Izuku, let's see how you handle a true king of the underworld. Urizen POV. I was brought out into this world again. I looked around and saw V. He was laying on the ground, barely conscious. I imperceptibly nodded to him before turning to look at the 2 small immortal kids in front of me. I could sense their ties to that blasphemous god Jashin. I growled and levitated the Yamato, turning it into a crystal in the process. Urizen, Izuku was smart to let me out. I am the only one who can kill you too. Katsuki, I would like to see you try, you rip-off titan. I shook my head before kicking some pebbles at them, although those pebbles were the size of their heads. Urizen, let's see what you can do. The twins ran at me and I teleported behind them, shooting down a blast of energized ordnance on them as I passed. Katsuki tried to hit me, but I just blocked it with the crystal. Katsumi shot a condensed explosion at me. I punched straight through it. I started wailing on the 2. I started to laugh. Katsuki grabbed my leg and threw me into a building. I pulled myself out of the building only to be met with a double howitzer impact to the face. I realized that this may not have been the best idea as my larger size caused me to be a bigger target, but no matter. Urizen, R8. I launched the 2 back with my shout. I watched as Katsuki liked something off his blade, before cutting his wrist open and drawing a symbol with his BLD. He then stabbed himself in the 𝗧𝗍𝗧, which involved in me vomiting up BLD. Urizen, Seek a smart move, using your immortality like that. But don't worry. V will bring back Izuku. I said as I watched V flying cane first at 𝗵𝘃𝗃. The cane penetrated the eye on 𝗵𝘃𝗃 and a massive blue light exploded. Izuku POV. I was not mad. I expected that to happen. He was a bigger target, and it was a 2v1 anyways. I activated my SDT and set my power to 30%. I had no words to say to the two traitors. I slashed at Katsuki. He ducked under the blade. I realized that I may need to go above Izuku. I can't believe Jashin has this level of power to gift to people. Katsuki, thanks. Izuku, allow me to release my limiters. When hope is gone, undo this lock, and set me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. I felt a massive surge of demonic energy and started to laugh at the sheer power. Izuku, he ha 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 he. I slashed at Katsuki's face. I was too fast for him to dodge. His head flew off of his shoulders. Most of the buildings behind him evaporated. I saw his body grab his head and try to run away. Izuku, you can't fix yourself if you are just missed. I slashed at Katsuki with the full intent of killing him. That was before a giant chicken blocked the slash. Izuku POV. A giant chicken-looking devil had blocked the slash that was intended to kill the Bakugo twins. I growled and trick-dodged to gain some distance. I was confused as to how this devil could take a hit from me at 100%. Izuku, so, you are 𝗵𝘃𝗃? 𝗵𝘃𝗃, that is correct. Izuku, so what is a big chicken like you doing all the way out here? The three heads of 𝗵𝘃𝗃 had an enraged expression. 𝗵𝘃𝗃, why you? The head of the bird stretched forward to bite me, but I rolled under it. The bird ran forwards and a misty portal opened and it vanished. Izuku, sheet. Ryoshi, I might need some help here. A red streak crossed my vision and stood next to me in a ready stance. Ryoshi, let's cook it like the chicken it is. 𝗵𝘃𝗃, what did you say? I jumped to the left as 𝗵𝘃𝗃 dropped from out of nowhere. I started to charge up an attack. Izuku, Ryoshi. Keep the bird busy. Ryoshi, got it. I heard 6 explosions as Ryoshi shot the bird with the 𝗏𝗏 and third-person POV. Green lightning started to arc off of Izuku's body, the air around him started to boil and crackle with the heat, and his sword started to shrink until it was barely the size of a knife. 𝗵𝘃𝗃 noticed Izuku was going for its weak point, the 3 bodies on the back of the bird. The bird body moved to the side and barely avoided the tiny sword. Izuku, Desert Sparta, heat haze. 𝗵𝘃𝗃 watched as the blade shimmered and grew back to its normal size. It felt its CC open and BLD sprayed out all over the big chicken. 𝗵𝘃𝗃, sheet. The sword never changed in size. 𝗵𝘃𝗃 fell to the ground, its body falling apart to dust. 𝗵𝘃𝗃, 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘. Izuku heard the whisper of 𝗵𝘃𝗃, so he walked back over to hear what it had to say. Izuku, I'm sorry, what was that? Suddenly, there was a huge gust of wind that blew Izuku's hair all around his face. There was a sharp pain in his left arm. He looked over to see it not there. He let his arm regenerate as he looked to the sky and saw something that he wished he never did. 𝗵𝘃𝗃, 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃. Izuku growled with rage and chopped the chicken devil's heads off. 𝗵𝘃𝗃 disintegrated into dust, and a human woman was left behind in its place. Izuku scoffed at the sight of her. Izuku, using a live human as an anchor. Smart. Ryoshi, we have more pressing matters. The devil known as Artemis screeched at the 2 devil children. Izuku, this one may be a bit much for us, brother. Ryoshi moved into a ready stance and smiled with his usual cocky smile. Before the 2 could act, they heard a heroic shout coming from a red, white, blue, and gold rocket that was flying towards Artemis. All Might, I am here. He slammed into Artemis and launched it into the nearby buildings. Izuku, what are you doing here? All Might, I'm here to help. Izuku shook his head. He had no idea what All Might could do. After all, devils are way stronger than humans. Izuku, and what can you even do? All Might, I may not look the part now, but I used to be a devil hunter. Izuku nodded his head, not believing what All Might said. All Might sighed and got into a different fighting stance than usual. Izuku and 𝗬𝗧𝗃 both got into fighting stances as they heard the scream of Artemis. Izuku, how are you going to fight? You don't even have a devil arm. All Might just smiled and pointed to the sky. Izuku looked up and saw a helicopter flying away and a small streak of silver was falling towards them. The streak landed in front of All Might. All Might walked towards it and picked it up. It was a silver briefcase. He opened it and inside was a silver wristband. All Might put it on. A huge surge of demonic energy surged from All Might. He shook his hand and the wristband turned into a giant great sword. Izuku shook his head. Izuku, of course you have Rakshasa. 𝗬𝗧𝗃, stop with the chatty and start with the slashy. There was a large explosion that Izuku flinched at, and 𝗬𝗧𝗃 was blasted into a nearby building. Izuku looked at All Might, who nodded to him. Izuku reflected a laser back to Artemis, then entered his SDT form and flew at Artemis. Izuku circled the devil, distracting her, while All Might attacked. Izuku and All Might were working well together. They were not getting in the way of each other and were taking down the devil at top speed. Izuku used 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃 to slice the two flying laser creatures that always followed Artemis. Izuku was slapped to the ground and landed next to All Might. Izuku, let's finish this. All Might, agreed 𝗃𝗧𝗟𝗘. Izuku, can you keep up, old man? All Might shoved Izuku out of the way and blocked a laser from Artemis. There was a dust cloud left behind from where he was. Izuku felt a twinge of fear. The dust cleared, and Izuku saw 𝗧𝗪𝗧 was standing there. Izuku then looked behind him and saw a civilian trapped under some rubble caused by Artemis. Izuku, I'm ending this with one strike. You have enough juice for one more? 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃, you bet. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃's right arm buffed up. He and Izuku then jumped into the air. All Might, United States of Smash. Izuku, 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃, 𝗧𝗑𝗍. Hanako POV. I was nervously watching the screen as Izuku was pushed away from an attack by All Might. When the dust cleared, a skinny All Might was left behind. There were many gasps of surprise as the crowd went silent. But one voice was heard. Stranger, you can do it, All Might. As if on cue, All Might's arm buffed up and the whole crowd slowly joined in with the cheering. We heard All Might call out his ultimate move, which had been combined with his great sword slash. All Might, United States of Smash. Izuku, 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃, 𝗧𝗑𝗍. Both of their attacks landed. There was a huge gust of wind and a massive dust cloud. After a few seconds of strained silence, All Might was shown to be victorious. He pointed to the camera and said something that would inspire hope in everyone. All Might, now it's your turn. Everyone was cheering and celebrating his victory, while Izumi was crying as if there was another meaning to that sentence. I looked back up and saw Izuku. He was smiling and helped All Might to go with him. RD person POV. It was late at night, the street lamps started to flicker on. 3 red glowing orbs moved down the street. As these orbs passed the street lamps, they flickered out, hiding its presence. This creature walked to the site of the battle. 2 drunk men stumbled out of a nearby bar and fell face first onto the street. The being watched them with disgust. It hated these creatures with a passion and wished to wipe them all out right now, but due to a failure of its subordinate, it had to return to the underworld for now. It flicked its hand and the 2 men lost their heads as blood sprayed out, staining the street. The creature opened a portal and walked through. Though knowing Mundus, he won't be gone for long. Izuku was sitting in the hospital, staring at All Might. He wondered how long he had been a devil hunter, and if he had ever met Dante or Virgil. Izuku stared at all of the wires and tubes connected to his father. He sighed. Izuku, I can never accept you or 𝗵𝗃𝗃 as parents, but I am willing to be friendly if we ever cross paths. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃, I am glad that we are able to work in a friendlyish manner, 𝗃𝗧𝗟𝗘. I also have my final gift to you, as the hero, All Might. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃 held his hand out and gave Izuku his wristband, the one that was his transforming sword, Rakshasa. Izuku held it carefully and stared at 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃 with shock. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃, take it to XXXXXXXXX and you can get it fixed there. Izuku, that's where 𝗵𝗃𝗃 works, right? 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗃 was shocked that Izuku could know such a thing. He was about to ask the question before Izuku replied first as he walked towards the door. Izuku, I kept tabs on you too. Izuku left and Toshinori laughed to himself. Toshinori, that kid continues to surprise me. Izuku activated his SDT form once he had left the hospital and flew off to the shop mentioned by Toshinori. Little did Izuku know that Mundus killed 2 men right underneath him. Inko looked up at the sound of the door opening and saw a hooded figure walk into the shop. Inko, hello, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 arms, how can I help? I would like this devil arm to be repaired. Inko looked at the great sword in front of her and assumed Toshinori had gotten one of his acquaintances to come and get it repaired for him. She knew that he was in the hospital. After all, she watched him and her former son fight a devil in Kamino Ward. Inko, I can do that, but it will be about 14,682,500 yen. The hooded man took his hood off to reveal slicked back with hair with green tips, piercing green eyes and a smug grin to rival Dante's. She immediately knew who this was. Izuku, do you take payment in plastic chairs? He said this while he pulled a white plastic chair out of a pocket dimension. To be specific, a white monoblock plastic chair. Inko's eyes widened when the money needed to repair the weapon was on the chair. Inko smiled sweetly as she looked at Izuku. Inko, of course I do. UA dorms, the next day. Izuku waked into the room and smiled widely at the sight. Everyone was sitting there, waiting for him. He laughed when a monoblock chair flipped over and launched Ryoshi across the room. Ryoshi, these chairs hate me. Izuku grabbed the chair and sat on it, emitting a powerful aura once he relaxed into it. Izuku, well, these were my predecessor's favorite, ethereal chairs. They hated Dante as much as he did. The class laughed and Ryoshi frowned. Izuku saw a sad Shoka sitting in the back of the dorm area. He walked over to her and placed a hand on her head. Izuku, hey, you okay? Shoka looked up at Izuku and he saw that she had tears in her eyes. Shoka, I am going to kill that 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Izuku smiled at her. Izuku, normally I wouldn't condone this after a breakup, but this time? And under these circumstances? I'm willing to help you get revenge. Shoka smiled up at him. Shoka, thanks. Underworld. Mundus walked to his castle. He was said. He killed all of the lesser demons that dared to get in his way. He slammed open the doors of his castle, only to see a humanoid figure sitting on his throne. Mundus, that is not your throne, you are not the king of the underworld, I am. If you want it, then you'll have to take it? Mundus recoiled in shock at the voice. It couldn't be, there was no way. The man stood up and kicked a kneeling overhaul. That's for Eri. I'm glad that my successor sent you to me. I get to have so much fun with scum like you, Kai Chisaki. Mundus, I thought the devils killed you. Me? Devils killing me? There are only 3 people who even stand a chance against me. Let alone kill me. Now, as the son of Sparta, the Alpha and the Omega and former wielder of the Yamato, I claim my right to challenge you to this throne. Lightning crackled behind the man, revealing that he was truly not dead. Who was he?